Hey everybody, John Gums here, coming to you live, Dakota Grappler live tonight. Going to talk a little wrestling with Sean Elkins. We are going a little bit early tonight. My buddy Bill Holton, he is down with the weather a little bit, and he said he'll come on later this week. So it'll be just Sean and I talking wrestling. Again, my name is John Gums. I'm owner and editor of Dakota Grappler. I am basically, my main purpose here is to promote the sport of wrestling in both North and South Dakota. Dakota Grappler has been around since 1999, and I'm happy to talk to Sean tonight. He's actually a former wrestler of mine, but it was when he was a little kid. He wrestled in the wrestling club when I coached in Mandan Wrestling Club, going back, man, that's almost 20 years ago, it seems like, but it's probably 15.
Yeah, like that, 06, 07.
Yep. About 15 years ago it goes by. He was just a little squirt back then, but always aggressive. And I'm going to give Sean, first I'm going to give my first impression, that I'm going to go back. Last year I saw him as a head coach in Killdeer, and he was taking the bull by the horns. He was in a tough region. In fact, what's interesting is that regions usually spread out, but both Bowman County has been phenomenal over the last couple of years. Hettinger, who's one of your coaches, Mr. Berwick, he's always going to bring top quality wrestlers onto the mat. And then, of course, you have Beach and Bowman, and you have several of these teams that, guess what, have great competition in the West. And I thought that Killdeer really stepped it up last year with you being head coach. Okay, Sean, I want you to introduce yourself. Tell me, first of all, just introduce yourself. Tell me what you're doing and where you're at, and explain to people what you're doing this year.
Okay. Well, I'm Sean Elkins, as Mr. Gums had said. I am in Killdeer. This is my 4th year here. Right now I'm teaching high school geography and 8th grade history. And I'm coaching football. We just wrapped up junior high football on Monday. And then obviously I'm involved in the wrestling program. And, fingers crossed, we go forward here pretty soon, and we get to get underway there. But
okay.
Basically just trying to do anything and everything I can up here with wrestling.
Well, that's awesome. No, Sean, you go back a long time. You've wrestled for 7 places. One thing I want to ask you right away is, what was the challenges for you when it came to trying to find a place to wrestle? You came from a smaller community that didn't have wrestling, and then you traveled quite a bit and trying to find a way to wrestle. Give me a little bit of how did you get to practice? Good parents, good, you name it. Just tell me how you did it.
Okay.
So, love of the sport. Just tell me where you lived, all that stuff. Just kind of go that way.
Okay. So I guess starting out, a lot of people don't know this, but I was actually a Holstein when I started out. I had Mr. Beckman as one of the coaches. But my uncles had wrestled for New Salem, late 90s, early 2000s, and we're from Hebron. And they would just drive me back and forth when they were still going to in high school. And then I kind of just had that bug hit me, because I started when I was 4 going on 5. I was pretty young for my grade. I graduated at 17, so I started kindergarten a little earlier than most. So, got bit by that bug, and then all I wanted to do was wrestle. And I was a pretty rambunctious kid, I guess you could say. Always talking or bouncing off the walls, and wrestling's a good way to get that energy out. So it was kind of, when does wrestling start? Okay, we're going to send you. So I'd say the first 4 or 5 years of wrestling for me, I was at New Salem. And then in 5th grade, Hebron got a co-op with Richardson for football. And then Richardson had an elementary wrestling program. So then we switched over to Richardson, and Ron Dalzell was the principal over there at the time. And
wrestling coach, I know Ron very well.
So I went there in 5th grade, and then 6th grade, had a little stint in Mandan for a bit, and wrestled for you.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like a turning point, I think, looking back, because I got exposed to freestyle and Greco, and just the whole world of wrestling kind of opened up. And I was kind of looking back, and like the guys on that team, like Holbein and I don't know why he keeps popping into my head.
Oh, because it's Holbein, but Zach Myers and
Zach Myers. Yeah, we were deep. That was cool. That was pretty cool. And then after that year, I kind of like kept those contacts. And then I started high school again in Hebron, and then wrestled, or junior high, I guess. And I wrestled 7th grade for Richardson. And then Richardson was going to stop the wrestling program. I think Dalzell was getting a job in Dickinson, the superintendent in Dickinson. And I don't really know how the story went, but the version I've been told was he was calling around trying to find someone to co-op with.
Right.
And he got a hold of Coach Berwick. And Coach Berwick's like, well, those kids want to wrestle. We'll figure it out and we'll make a co-op work. And we started that 90-mile co-op with Hettinger. So then 8th grade comes around.
How did you find a way to wrestle? Now, did you get down there once, twice a week? Did you wrestle on your own? Did you?
So it kind of evolved over the 4 years in high school. So 8th grade year, we would go over to Richardson. Pat Schlosser would come down. He was going to school at Dickinson at the time. And Berwick talked him into coaching, and he'd come to Richardson and meet us Hebron kids, because at that time we had more Hebron kids than Richardson kids. And my grandma would drive the short bus over from Hebron, and we'd go practice at the St. Mary's. It's the old Catholic church or Catholic school in Richardson. We go practice in the basement. I bet that mat was maybe 40 feet long by 8 feet wide. It wasn't even full section. We fit 12 kids down there in that basement. And then
who were some of the other kids from Hebron?
So Jeffrey Abrahamson.
Okay, know him.
There were 3 Abrahamson boys that all wrestled. And then we had a Kaminsky kid that he was a couple JV guys for the heading lineup. And then there were like 2, I think, Richardson kids. And then Richardson disappeared kind of, and they all went to basketball because we're in basketball country over there.
Yeah.
So
that's what they think.
Yeah, that's what they think anyway. They're all my height, but they want to play basketball and they should be wrestling. But no, we would just practice in Richardson, and then we would drive to Hettinger twice a week. Usually it would be like the night of a duel or the night before a tournament. And we would just make it work there. And it was pretty cool because the Hettinger community was really welcoming. Like, and I say community because that community supports their wrestling. Whether even the basketball players would be at the duels, the basketball.
They support all their sports. Yes. Hettinger's a great community.
They're all over down there. So, and it was great. And so like if we would have a duel on a Thursday, we'd get to stay with a teammate. And then we'd get on the bus and leave Friday morning. So that was always cool. Or if they're coming this way, they would pick us up in Dickinson. I do remember one time, though. So Lane Overson wrestled with me at Dickinson, and he a couple-time placer for Killdeer. Mm-hmm. Killdeer picked me and the Abrahamson boys up one day in Dickinson on our way to Hettinger to duel us.
Yeah. So, you're riding with the enemies, sure.
Yeah, riding with the enemies. So we just found ways to just hitchhike rides, I guess, and get from point A to point B. But we kind of just did that all the time. Mm-hmm. So
wrestling's a good community, good family. Yes,
it is. So like when I was in high school, I used to go stay with the Bosches for a couple weeks in the summer down in Wishick.
Okay.
Me and Blake would wrestle, and Jared Reese would come over. And then
those are some great names.
Yep. And then we'd make our way up, and we'd hang out and practice with Bismarck High in the summer. We'd roll around with Ryan Blees. So it was a tight-knit circle there once I started getting older, and everyone was just driving around in the summers because we all got our licenses, and these things started getting handy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was cool.
Well, I tell you what, you had a pretty good high school career too. Now, tell us about how you transferred to get to high school to college. What was the biggest step there, going to Dickinson State?
I think the biggest step going from high school to college was consistency of diet and consistency of discipline. Mm-hmm. So Berwick always hated my weight cutting, and he always hated my diet, and he'd always try to like, Sean, if you do it this way, you know, you cut out the pop, you cut out the sugary cereals, you don't eat ice cream every day. It's easy.
Yeah.
You know what you're talking about. But once I finally kind of figured that out in college, and it took me till I was a junior, mind you, it really started clicking.
Did you end at where, 57? Where did you end up? Okay.
Yep. But starting out, that was a hard lesson to learn. And the depth of the practice room was an eye-opener, because we had like Coach Hayes at Dickinson High, my butt up and down that first month. And it was a brutal room. But that year, I mean, I think we had 28 kids on the college team, and about 8 of us were at 2 weight classes. So it was deep. It was fun. And kind of just learning to get off the bottom. That was another thing. And that
I think people underestimate how good Dickinson really has been over the years, Dickinson State.
I didn't see it until they started recruiting me. They weren't really on my radar. Like I didn't really think, well, I'm going to go to Dickinson State and wrestle. Now I can't believe I would have thought anywhere else. Because I was kind of leaning towards like going with 40. Go down to C40 he was at Southwest Minnesota at the time, or Mary. And then I was like, let's go look at Dickinson. And I talked to Coach O'Donnell, and then I talked to Coach Berwick, and he's like, Dickinson's a great place. You won't regret it. And they were right. They're a top 10 team in and out consistently. Right now it's a little down, but they're still in the top 20, like since I've been there. So yeah, Dickinson is just a great state school. And I think they're really overlooked, because everyone hears, wow, you know, you can go to UMary, and Aho's killing it. He's doing a great job over there. He's really promoting it. And now you got 40 at Minot, and he's pulling North Dakota kids. And then you have NDSU. But Dickinson's kind of a powerhouse and clutch in the NAI. And that was something that was unbeknown to me at the time too, because that group of guys I had rattled off earlier about high school, we all kind of talked, you know, like D1 or bust, D1 or bust. We're all going to go D1. And a couple of them did. And they had good careers. And I'm very thankful I went to the NAI, because they had to kind of sit out the first couple of years, you know, and I had the opportunity to where I could go, and I was able to earn a spot as a freshman, and I didn't have to redshirt right away. And it was, for me, that's what I needed. I needed to get going. Or I wouldn't say would have gotten stagnant, but it would have been hard for me to focus.
Sure.
That young anyways.
So were you ever diagnosed ADHD, or is it just natural?
Yeah.
Because you've always bounced off the walls. Yeah, definitely.
All the time, nonstop.
So
I'll never forget it. We were in Rochester, Minnesota, and Cameron Hamley was sitting on the computer, and he would always play Kingdom of Hearts or whatever.
Yeah, okay.
Every national team's trip. And I think it was me, Cameron Hamley, Bosch, Reese, and Schumacher were all in a room. And
Joey?
Yep, Joey.
Okay, gotcha.
And they got annoyed with me, I think, at that point.
That sounds like trouble.
Cameron ended up wrestling me because I wouldn't stop bothering them, you know, just bouncing off the walls and top of them. Why are you playing this video game? Let's go do something, you know? But that's just always been me. Just yap, nonstop.
Do you relate to those wrestlers that are that way? Because to me, I think it's the best avenue. Anybody ADHD, wrestling's a great sport for them. I tell you what.
Absolutely. I don't seek those kids out, but like if you have a kid that's in your school and they're not really fitting into any other mold because they're just constantly needing to do something, wrestling makes you focus so much. And you slow down, you become a different person.
It's a new drive. It's something that they can focus on to be excellent at.
Absolutely.
You would not believe. I go back to one of my first wrestlers that I remember coaching. Todd Nas is his name. And surprisingly enough, a lot of them turned into coaches too. This Todd Nas is actually a coach in Ipswich, South Dakota, and he was just every teacher had a hard time keeping him in their room. He wasn't ever a bad kid. Just that he was so anxious to do something. And I grabbed him as an 8th grader and I said, "Hey, why don't you try wrestling?" And he was a football player for me, and he was tough. But he was so scatterbrained in football as a junior high football coach like you. I said, and he comes up to me at the end of practice, and I had forgot completely about him. He goes, "I'm doing it, coach." I said, "What?" "I'm wrestling." "Oh, that's great." And oh man, the stories I could tell and how he just took it to people and he didn't know what he was doing, but it was all the energy and some about that energy level that they have that if you can somehow channel it and focus it, it's phenomenal.
Oh yeah. It gets your motor going, and it's controlled. I don't know what a good word to be used. It's just controlled. I don't know. It's just it's just controlled.
Okay.
Better for them.
Tell me something about some of your coaching experience now. This is your 4th year there. Tell me the coaches that were there before you as you started off, and then tell me what your toughest thing was your first year as a head coach.
Okay, coaching. Okay, so when I first got to Killdeer, Pat Schlosser and Daniel Kerr were the 2 co-head coaches. And then Mr. Kerr, Randy, he was still around.
Old man Kerr, yeah.
Yep, old man Kerr. And then myself, and I think that was it that first year. That was an interesting group to come into, just because I was so used to, well, for one, Pat was my high school coach. Okay. So that was a new dynamic for me, especially like when he would ask me my opinion on something. I was like, well, okay, yeah, I guess. I mean, we are colleagues now. This is pretty wild. But so like Berwick and O'Donnell were very similar. Like my practice plan from practicing in Hettinger to practicing at DSU were darn near identical. Time structure, move shown, technique shown. It's like they wrestled at the same place around the same time. But it was eerie to me how similar it was. It was very structured. And when I came to Killdeer right away, it was just, I don't want to say it was polar opposite, but it was structured, right? But showed moves, and they used terminology that I had never heard before. And it was like more of a family affair. Like obviously Randy and Daniel are fathers, but like family as in everyone got a say in kind of how it went, where I was kind of used to, you've got your head coach and he just kind of barks it down and that's how it goes. And you get the options. And then the next year, both the Kerrs kind of left and were doing their own thing. So it was me and Schlosser. And then we had the egg teacher come and help us, Mr. Lear, from Napoleon.
I know him, yes.
Yep. And then he actually wrestled on the 08 Indianola, Iowa team.
Okay.
Yep. Stars and Stripes down in Indianola, Iowa. Fun fact.
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. Awesome.
Yeah. So, and then there was that year, and that was Schlosser's. He'd been a head coach in Colorado for several years, but that was his first year at the helm in Killdeer. But he was kind of in between of leaving the job, staying on the job, so he didn't really know what route he wanted to take, I think. And then the next year he was the assistant, and he and I switched, and that was a struggle for me. Just being the one calling the shots, kind of telling someone what to do and changing your philosophy. And that was hard for me because Killdeer has a proud tradition of wrestling. They always have. And they've had some hammers of teams. Man, back when I was in high school, it was Killdeer, Wofford City, and Henninger, and everyone would have to run the gauntlet.
And you throw New Salem in the mix with their stuff.
And New Salem now. And they were even tough back then, and they still only had 8-9 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they're always a top 10 team at the state tournament. Like, I don't want to brag about Region 4, but like that's the thing. Like everyone, Region 4 always gets knocked on because like we don't have
a numbers game. That's all.
The quality of wrestling's there in Region 4. Like it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
And Killdeer was always one of those tough teams. But I kind of think the transition, because in 6 years they had Shane, and then they had Pat and Daniel, and then they had Pat, and then they had me. And it's not that it was bad or anything like that. It was just like life situations happening.
Always changing. It's tough sometimes. Yep.
Yeah. So figuring out a philosophy that would kind of fit and sink in with these kids, and kind of fit with what I wanted to do was really, it wasn't a big struggle for me, but I definitely sought out some advice.
And you're probably still learning at that point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm still learning it.
Right.
I think this is when I called Coach Berg a lot that last year. And one thing he told me was, Sean, you're gonna keep learning and changing every single year. You're gonna think you figure it out.
He's a great mentor. You picked a good guy for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, what a great mentor. I mean, that guy's influenced my practices and my outlook on wrestling and life just so much. It's talking about what I wanted to do as a coach. I knew I wanted to give back, but I didn't know I wanted to give back as a coach until kind of like thinking about people that like shaped me and moved me, involved me, because there were times like going back to like the driving back and forth, there were times where that got hard, and Coach knew that, and he would figure out ways to make it easier on us. Like he called the school board in Hebron one time, I think it was a senior, and he said, we're going to rent out a place for these kids in Hebron, and they're going to practice there. And it was just us Hebron kids. We didn't have a coach. Ron Dalzell would come in every now and then, but otherwise it was me and Jeffrey running practice, unless it was the nights we were going to Hettinger.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we had an adult in there with us, but they didn't know anything about wrestling. But he got it set up to where we'd have a space to practice.
Sure.
He made it to where if you were one of his kids, you wanted to end up being a coach.
Yeah.
And if you looking at the western half of the state, Ken Mayer, the former wrestler of his, Bowman, a former wrestler of his, Killdeer, Watford City now, he has coaches the whole side of the state. And if you watch any of us and you kind of see how our kids act, they're all kind of modeled after his team. And I think that's a testament to him. Not that we all want to be like him, but you know something good when you see it, and you know something good when you learn it.
Yep. And you don't want to break something that's not broken, or do anything different when it's not broken. Yeah, the system is good. Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
And trying to figure out how to implement that system and keep it the same was probably one of the hardest.
But you got wrestlers that need to buy in, steer in the future. You got a lot. Look, all the years he had to do to build that. It takes a lot and some trust and some community building. It's so deep. When I really look at a small town program, not only thriving but surviving, because there's going to be up and down years, and there's going to be years that school board members don't like you, even though you're doing things right. The politics of a small town's way different. Wrestling's a tough sport, and people don't realize how tough it is. It's by far, in my book, the toughest sport ever. Mentally, physically, just demanding on parents, schools, everything. But it makes everybody such a better person. It's such a great life learning sport. I couldn't place it, above anything or below anything that I know. It's on the top in my book.
It is.
Yeah.
And trying to get kids to understand that and not scare them off is kind of hard at times. You just need to do it because it's awesome and you're going to be a better person. You're going to love it. Just come on for wrestling. I think I'm going to go play basketball. Thanks, so, coach. But it's everything you said, and then trying to contain that a little bit when you're selling it to kids so they can figure it out for themselves. That's hard too. Going back on some of the struggles recruiting kids to come wrestle. Luckily, I walked into a program that has such a prominent Pee Wee program.
Okay. Yes.
Our club they've been doing a great job of getting these kids out, keeping them wrestling, supporting wrestling.
I brought my boy 4 years in a row to that Friday night at your guys' wrestling tournament and basically sweat every year inside that building and they have the best popcorn.
Definitely.
Yeah. My wife who is she knew practically nothing about wrestling, tell my boys and stuff, but she said, I want to go to Dickinson and to the Killdeer tournament every year because that night, Friday night, it's going to see lots of kids running around and it's crazy. Yep. And she loved that small town atmosphere of where you got grandpa and grandma yelling out there and the wrestling stuff and just that. And she said, of course, the popcorn, that's where I brought that up from. But then we'd go to Dickinson and then she'd see that and see it's a total different atmosphere between the 2 days where you see the Class A parents sit back and yes, involved, but not like Class B crowds. No.
Yeah, Class B crowds get into it.
Oh, yeah.
Like kind of thinking back, that one of the highlights, I guess, you didn't ask that, but I'm going to bring it up.
Sure. Oh, yeah, definitely.
For me was when we got asked to go to Mandan. Because I was like, oh, man, the Lions tournament, there's nothing like it. And Schloss was like, yeah, we got to go to the Lions. Like, we got asked, let's go. And we told the boys, we're going to the Lions. And like, okay. So, like, who's at the Lions? And I was like, you guys don't know what the Lions tournament is? Are you kidding me? And I was like, never mind. I guess Hettinger's been the only Class B team that's ever been there, really.
Mm-hmm.
So when we got to go there and our parents got to go there, it didn't change, like everything for us. But they're like, this is a cool tournament. Mm-hmm. And if I had to think of any other tournament from the Class A side that would be similar to a B, I want to say the Lions tournament is my epitome of what a Class B atmosphere is like almost.
Well, you get to bring in some Rapid City schools and you got the Bismarck schools, but it's a lot of matches. You can get 8 matches that weekend and stuff or so, or more if you in the brackets and make it through the tournament part. But no, it's awesome. Now, tell me about some of your wrestlers coming up now. If you got your team close to you, you're going to go through a little bit. Now, what do you think your numbers will be this year? And tell me some of your returning guys on your team.
I think number-wise will probably be around the 20 to 30 mark. So we were talking up and down years. I don't want to call it a down year yet, but like some of our junior high classes coming up, we only have 2 or 3 kids that ever wrestled. So recruiting them is going to be crucial. But we only lost 3 kids last year. I don't want to say only.
But it is.
Yeah,
yes.
We lost 3 seniors last year, but we're bringing back a stacked freshman class. I'll get them in a second. And then we have 1 senior, Zach Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
That kid, he's the epitome of hard work. When you think about it, he's a student of the game, and it's just fun to be around him. And he's my size, so I get to go around with him. So that's fun. But hopefully we can piece it together this year and get him to finish a career as a champ. I know that's his goal, and we fell short last year a little bit. And he came back on the backside with a vengeance, and I felt bad for everyone that had to wrestle him after that semis loss. Because he took it to him. I think he pinned everyone on the backside. Mm-hmm. And then juniors, we've got several juniors. Ashton Fry, I think he's going to be 52 or 60 for us. He's been at the state tournament now twice, and he's one of those kids. We were talking earlier, kind of what I did this summer. Killdeer, I don't want to say benefited from the shutdown of COVID and everything being shut down, but this summer our kids wanted to lift bad. We
had a new focus
all morning, all night, all day. They just wanted to get better, and they knew they might only have one chance to compete. So we had like the full football team, full wrestling team, full basketball. All the sports were in their lifting at their scheduled times. Everyone was doing their group workouts at their scheduled times. And it was actually kind of fun because it was a challenge figuring out how to get small groups of kids to be able to come in and compete and challenge each other and be spread out and still have their open mats, and observe everything and just make sure none of them are getting hurt. That was fun to watch and kind of organize and finagle. But Ashton was one of those kids that was at every single workout and lifted, and that was exciting to see. And then we have Jace Anderson, who he's been one of our smaller 6-pounders the last 3-4 years now, and he's filled out. He's hit the weights hard the last 2 years, and it's catching up to him, and he's like a solid 115 right now.
Okay.
So I'm excited to see what he can do at full size. Because he's been giving up 20 pounds the last 3 years. It's kind of hard.
It's finally big enough.
Yep, finally big enough. And then our sophomores, and I have Cody Simmons. Cody Simmons wrestled 113 for us last year, and he was a bubble round guy at the state tournament. He was a kid that he turned it on there at the end. And he put him in position where he could have went either way and he could have played. He might not have, but he left it all out there. I'm excited to see what that kid does this year too. And then our sophomores, I don't know if I'll have any this year. I don't think, because our sophomores that wrestled last year transferred out. So that's a class we're going to have to try and recruit some of those basketball players from.
Yeah.
And then our freshman group, these guys are going to be the bulk of our lineup the next 3 years, I'm thinking. Because we have Birch Bang, who's been a state qualifier. He fell short last year.
Taylor is Taylor his dad?
Taylor is his cousin.
Cousin, okay.
Yep.
It's one of the Bang family, though.
Yep, one of the Bang families, though. Yep.
Okay.
So Taylor is the little Anderson's uncle.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So Birch and Jace are cousins. And then another kid that's a freshman would be Gus Bomback.
Complete stud, yeah.
Yeah. Gus is one of those kids. I think if we don't have a match cap in the next 3 years, he might reset the Class B record for wins, I'm thinking.
Well, I'm hoping he gets the matches in because the kid's got a ton of wins and he brings it.
Something already, and he hasn't even started his freshman year.
Yep.
So, yeah, he's a dude, and that kid eats, sleeps, and breathes wrestling nonstop. So I'm excited for what the future for those three hold. And then we have Christian Ramos, who's another kid. I don't know where he's going to wrestle. He says he might be 113, he might be 120, and we'll see. And then I have a pair of twins, the Dumas twins. They'll wrestle 106 also. So, yeah, that group of 7 kids, 7 kids is –
it can be a core of a team for several years, definitely.
Yep. And then our junior high kids coming up are going to be tough. We have a Jepson coming up again.
Anytime we mention another Jepson, yeah.
Yep, another Jepson. But
isn't there more Bombacks?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I thought there were more too.
There are 3 more Bomback boys, and they have a cousin.
Okay.
Another cousin boy. So there will be 4 of them coming up. 2 Jepsons coming up, and then who else? It's kind of a family affair. Oh my gosh, I forgot our Roundy brothers. Our heavyweight last year.
Oh yeah.
And that kid, he's a man among boys. Like he's 6'6", I'm pretty sure, and 250 pounds, and just and he was like the teddy bear because all of Pee-wees, don't hurt everyone. Now you can hurt everyone, like go out and be aggressive. So
now go hurt people, yeah.
Now go hurt people. But I don't know. I'm excited because like this is a group where like I get to grow my philosophy with. I get to kind of see like, all right, this is what we're doing. And I've gotten to see them grow because that freshman group, my first year here, they were all sixth graders in the Pee-wees.
Mm-hmm.
I got to see them as Pee-wees and I'll get to see them finish. So it's going to be one of those bittersweet moments, I guess, at the end there, you know? But yeah, I'm just excited for them. I can't wait to just get us out there and compete.
No, that's what it's about. I tell you what, you got to get excited for the boys to wrestle. Definitely. Now, how about this? If you were going to pick a position you'd want to focus your wrestling on the most as your style, would it be a top? Would it be on their feet? Would it be probably not the bottom? Because I know how you didn't like that so much.
No,
just get out of there is your philosophy there.
It's terrible.
Yeah. Tell me where your focus would be. Trying to be really good on top, pinning people on your feet. What kind of?
I think. Oh man, now you're making me give my secrets away. I might have to Caleb Anderson.
Yeah. I can't give you my inside information. No, just you don't have to tell moves.
I don't know. I think I'd have to stick with the top because Killdeer's always been known their top, you know, and probably their feet because that was my MO. That carried me from 4 years old to now.
That's been your position, yes, on your feet.
So.
How about favorite move to drill?
Oh, I'd say.
Or combo moves. You like to?
I would say a leg turk.
Okay.
I definitely like the leg turk. I love it. The kids doubted me at first. So all of our boys obviously know that I wrestle that Hettinger, and they knew Coach Slosher wrestle that Hettinger, and they knew that he was my coach. And they would give us so much grief every time they would see like Hettinger kids doing something that we do, and they're like, "Oh, so are you just trying to make us like Hettinger?" Like, no, we're doing because it works. Like, just listen to us.
Yeah,
Hettinger runs a wicked leg turk. Like, they've been doing it since I was in high school, and I tried to get our kids to hit it, and finally, I think it was one of the 7th graders hit it at a tournament, hit it Bowman Rotary, and everyone was like, "What? That works?" I was like, I've been telling you guys the last several weeks, hit the leg turk. You won't regret it. So I'd have to say the leg turk or the double leg. You know, the thing with the double leg is it's so simple, but it's not. I mean, you can finish it so many different ways, how you lock your hands, where you finish, how you set it up. Are you going inside? Are you going outside? Are you trying to get them to push and pull? Are you trying to shuck them into a double? I kind of obsess over the double leg, and my wife hates it. Absolutely hates it because we'll just be sitting there walking. We'll be walking in Target. We were in Target the other day, and we were walking, and I was like, "Oh, better sprawl double leg." And she's like, "Why are you doing that in public? Why?"
Yeah, all wrestling wrestlers do this. Yes.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't help it. You know, constantly thinking double legs. But then when you show doubles, then you're like, oh, maybe we should go into single legs. Single legs are, you know, they go hand in hand.
Well, I tell you what, a double is a tough man's move. You have to be mentally tough and strong to do it. But if you can hit a good double, nobody can stop it. Look at the best guys from Penn State over the years. Yeah. Guess what? They're double machines, and there's a good technique to it. You got to get them moving toward you or shuck, push, pull. All the techniques to set it up. I always thought, now here's what's interesting. I wasn't very strong till later in high school. And so being weak, I found myself trying to hit a double and switching to a single, you know, and you could finish a single. But guess what? That mentality you got to hit the double first brought me all of a sudden, when you have your strength, all of a sudden, guess what? There's that double and you just blowing people over like you're a middle linebacker, you know.
And with that, like for some reason, like throughout college, I switched to a double leg. And I had myself brainwashed. Man, I must have just hit everyone in a double leg in high school. And I got talking with Coach Berg. He's like, "What are you talking about? You hit duck unders and high toppers." Like, really? I thought I was this cool guy hitting double legs all the time. But I mean that it being a tough move, you know, being a gritty move, that's kind of something I like showing because the kids kind of start getting mentally tough then.
Yep. Oh, definitely.
Because wrestling's not a pretty boy sport. So if you can't hit a double leg, or at least attempt a double leg, you might not like getting gritty, you know, which is fine. Yeah, I've got a lot of kids that don't like the double legs, or they're just like, they can get in on a double leg, but we don't quite have the hip mobility yet, or we don't have the quad strength. So then it's like, all right, well, then we'll just switch into positions. And it's fun. Being able to like open up like that and expand their knowledge is really, really fun. And I've got a group of kids that just soak it all in. And they just want to get better, and they ask and ask and ask. And that's the greatest thing ever about this group of kids that I have right now, is they ask you why, and they ask you questions. And I think that's pretty cool. Just in my opinion, that's something I wish I would have done more in my career. I never asked why. I just, okay, yep, I'm going to do it. You know, like busy, let's go. And I never stopped to think why, but I would have thought why on like, why are we hitting a shuck and the footwork? And then it would have made sense a little sooner. But
no, you couldn't do like a Jared Reese, you know, he did the old shuck on the head and then hit you with any move possible.
Yeah.
Or, and then go upper body with you just for fun.
Yeah. He was, well, the thing with Jared that was hard is he was fast. He was just as fast as you were if you thought you were fast. And I thought I was fast.
Right.
And when I wrestled him at the East-West, I was like, oh,
I remember the match.
Faster than I thought you were. Because he's like 5'5", 5'6", you know, and he's a stout looking guy. So you're like, oh, he's just going to be strong. He's going to try like just manhandling you. And you're in high school, so you're like, no one's faster than me. I'm fast. Like I'm the guy.
And you were definitely.
And no, he proved me wrong real quick. Like, oh, listen here, you should maybe look at your opponent a little bit, or listen to your coaches.
So yeah. would you put him in your top 5 of high school competition guys you faced?
Oh yeah, definitely Jared, CJ Vogelai. We had a fun year, our senior year. And then I always liked going to the Cowboys in Miles City.
Okay.
I remember I lost to Trevor Goss from Sheridan, Wyoming, and I ended up wrestling him at the Missouri Valley Open in Marshall, Missouri in college. Okay. I was like, oh, this is a long circle. And I didn't realize who he was until his dad came up to me. He's like, did you ever wrestle at the Miles City Cowboy? I was like, oh, yeah. It's crazy how some of those things go full circle there. Where, so if I had to do a top 5 in high school, it would be, Jared, CJ, CJ.
You were never big enough for Ryan Oblease or anybody.
No.
They were always bigger than you.
Yep. I wrestled Schumacher once.
Joey? Probably in freestyle?
No. This was in the finals in Mandan, because I wrestled CJ Clark in the pool tournament and beat him. And then he lost to Shuey to get to the finals. And then Shuey ankle picked me to my back in like 45 seconds. So like, I want to say that
Joey.
But like, I can't even like consider that we had a full match because he just whooped up on me right away. So he's definitely up there. But that CJ Clark was from Rapid City Central, and that kid I wrestled in college. And Nider, Mr. Nider, I don't know if he retired last year from officiating or not.
Last year was his last year. Yeah, he's not reffing this year. I know him very well. Mike Nider, yes.
So he reffed me in college, and I wrestled CJ because CJ wrestled at Chadron State.
Okay.
And the first time I ever sat in the coach's room, my first year coaching, Nider came up to me. He's like, hey, do you remember that one time that kid from Dickinson was wrestling this kid he wrestled in high school, and it was an overtime, and all he had to do was just not get ridden out? I said, yeah. He's like, and he picked bottom? I said, yeah, I think I remember that match. He's like, yeah, you should, because that was you.
Nider.
I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you can't throw me under the bus like that. It's the first time here.
Yeah, that's Mike Nider for you, definitely.
Yep, he's a joker for sure.
Yeah, I'll miss him on probably with jokes more than reffing. No, he's actually a good friend of mine, very good friend. I bowled with him many years, and those jokes never stop. And I played softball and all this stuff with him. So Mike is a good dude, but I tell you what, we'll miss him this year, reffing.
Definitely.
How about college now? Tell me about your accolades. How much did you get to wrestle there? Do you wrestle every year? Did you qualify for the super regionals? Did you tell me what your college turned out like?
Okay. So, right away at Dickinson, I was able to, I split time, at 57 because there were like 8 of us there.
Mm-hmm.
Split time at 57 until the regionals. And the way NAI worked at the time, I believe we had 6 regions. And top 4 qualified. No, that doesn't make sense. 4 regions and top 4 qualified. Now it's 6. 4 regions and top 4 qualified, and we were in the North region, which, if any of you are Jamestown fans, it's the GPAC now.
Okay.
Which is the conference Jamestown's in. You can take all 10 weight classes plus 2 alternates, and you can pick your alternates at whatever weight. So I would split time at 57. And then another North Dakota guy, Brad Steele from Beach, he was at 49s. And Brad was very frustrating to wrestle because he said he had the steel trap. He would take him down and you'd put him to his back. And then the next thing you know, you'd be on your back getting pinned. You're like, I just took you down flat to your back. Like, how are you doing this? But he All-American twice off of that. He decided to go from 49 to 41 the last 3 weeks. And Coach O'Donnell was like, Sean's might be wise for you to go down to 49. And I was like, okay, yep, let's do it. And I'm glad I did because I wasn't the point scorer. Yeah, I was the point scorer, but I wasn't the starting guy at 49. I was the backup at 49. And our starter ended up being the 2 seed, and he went 0-2 barbecue. And I ended up winning it that year, the region that year. So I got an automatic bid to the national tournament. And so at our region, top 4 go kind of like class Bs.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to I made it to the quarters and I ended up losing to Jimmy Eggemeyer from Southern Oregon. And he ended up going on to win it. And I went 1-2 on the backside.
Mm-hmm.
Pinned myself in the blood round.
Oh.
Sean McGee from Campbellsville, and I was up. That's the thing that really frustrates me is I was up, and I'm just thinking in my head, okay, I got to score. So I go to cradle, and if you know me, I am terrible with cradles. I get cradled, and I get pinned, and I cradle people, I get pinned. So I go to cradle this guy, and I go to suicide cradle, and it's like the second period, and I'm ahead. I think it's like 3-2, 3-1. And I just kind of slip my walk, and he turns, hip high sprawls, pin, done. That's the end of my season. I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? So I end up wrestling him again later on, but that's another story. So that was the end of that year. I was round of 12 guy. And I thought I had it all right freshman campaign. My sophomore year, I wrestled split time again at 57. We had a JUCO transfer from California, Tyler Johnson. He was a pretty tough guy. He wrestled out of Vacaville, and split time there, and we both went at 57s. And the way the regions also work is you can get at-large bids.
Sure.
So he ended up taking second in the region, and I got 5th or 6th. But that year in our region, all 6 of us were ranked in the top 10. So I got an at-large bid to go to the national tournament that year. Well, that year, I also made the blood round, and I lost to our region champ from Midland. So, and 2 years in a row, top 12. But that was disappointing. And that was the year where it's like my weight cutting was really bad for me. And I should have listened to Coach Berwick and Coach O'Donnell, cut out on the ice cream. That was interesting, though, that year, because that was my first year living off campus.
Okay.
Buying my own groceries. Hot Pockets are not fuel. But, like,
I do not. Yeah.
but like my roommates, I had a 33-pounder Matt Chambers, and then the national runner-up that year at 97 or 84s was Jesse Hellinger. Those are my two roommates. So we're like just this oddball assortment of Jesse's really big, I'm in the middle, and Mac was just tiny.
Yeah.
And like they were eating healthy and clean. I'm like, oh, you guys are from California. You don't know what you're talking about. I mean, you just eat carbs and meat. You'll be fine. Just run. And they had success and I didn't. I'm like, okay, maybe I should have listened to Fueling Your Body. Schleck knew what he was talking about there too. Yeah, that was the year I learned don't sit next to Coach Schleck on the bus or he will talk your ear off. You think Coach Conrad can talk? Coach Schleck, you get him started on a tangent, he'll go on and on and on and on. Love it.
Had your roommate on last week, yep.
But I mean, when you're trying to cut weight, that's not who you want to sit by. But it's always entertaining. And then the next year, I was going to redshirt. It would have been my junior year of college. I was going to redshirt, planned on redshirting. That was our game plan going in. That year, we also switched to 1 semester wrestling at Dickinson, which if you're a college wrestling fan, college wrestling starts in November, right? And goes to March. That's a grind.
Yeah, because you got to end the first semester and do the second semester, right?
Yep. And looking back, obviously self-discipline was my big downfall when it came to making weight. But looking back at the schedule, I think schedule-wise, competing that half semester made it a lot easier for me to be more disciplined and to be able to make weight and to just be mentally more rejuvenated. But that first year, we were just going to try it out, and I was going to redshirt, and I was going to go to a couple redshirt tournaments. But I don't know how it happened. Me and one of Dickinson's assistants now, Taylor Hodell, we accidentally tore the starter's meniscus and ACL, and he had that surgery, and he was out. And we were doing a group of 3, and like we were pretty heated, like we were intense. And it's not that we didn't like each other, that there was bad blood. We just sometimes fist fights would happen in the middle of the match. It's just because you're going so hard, you know. And we didn't realize that like we hurt him that badly at the time, because Taylor was at 65s and I was redshirting, so I was like, okay, well, that stinks. And Thad calls me. It was Sunday because I remember I was watching football, and he's like, "Hey," it was right before Christmas break. It was December, and I'm pretty fat at the time because I'm redshirting. Hey, Tyler just called me. He can't go this year. He's done. He's gonna have surgery. Season's over. So you're not redshirting anymore. And then I put the pizza down. No more Mountain Dew. Man, I guess I gotta really start cutting weight again, or not cutting weight, but can't be eating the whole pizza by myself.
Weight management, we call it now.
Weight management, yes. And so that's the funny thing. Like you would think, because Hebron's only 45 minutes from Dickinson, but we never went to Dickinson. I was always wrestling or doing football or something when I was in high school. So moving to Dickinson and having a McDonald's and having fast food was eye-opening for me. And because I learned you can't eat a McDonald's McChicken and a chicken nuggets and then get a McFlurry and then go to practice because you don't feel good. And, you know, you're an 18-year-old kid, you know, you think, I've never had this before. You have, but it's just new. No one tells you no. So that year, though, was a half semester, and then I ended up going 57s. And that was the most successful year I had. I think I only had 6 losses that year, and I took 3rd. But so remember how I said me being on bottom was bad? So I'm in the semis, and for some reason I'm thinking, pick bottom, go out, get a point. Because that was, when we talk about philosophies, that was something Randy preached, and that was something Thad preached. And it was, you go on bottom, it's a free point, it's a mentality. That's all it is. And I'm like, yep, it's a mentality. I'm going on bottom. Not really thinking this kid's a leg rider. So
Right.
go to hit a free leg, and if you don't hit a free leg properly, you get put to your back.
Put back. Yep.
I hit a free leg. He throws the boots in, and then he pins me in the second period. I'm like, well, what? So mad. And then, so the second day of the national tournament, you only have a 1 hour weigh-in. So you weigh in, you wrestle semis, and then boom, you're wrestle backs right away, like 30 minutes later. But I didn't really have time for it to sink in, like, oh, I don't get to be a national champ. I always wanted to be a national champ. I kind of just went on a vengeance and pinned my way through the backside. So that Sean McGee that beat me when I was a freshman, I got to wrestle him the very first round that year, my junior year, and I pinned him.
Okay.
And then I got to wrestle Dallas Houchins from Grandview, who pinned me 2 weeks earlier. And that, for third and fourth, I got to wrestle him. And that was one of those, like, we game planned for what not to do, but I ended up doing it.
Right.
So he was a prolific leg rider. And again, I wasn't very good at bottom. So I sat out and was in like a crab ride position. And he threw in a deep half, and he baited me to reaching. And as soon as I reached, he caught my elbow and pinned me. Well, we were in third and fourth, and our game plan was keep it on your feet. You can smoke them on your feet. And if you get on top, ride them. Don't get any rolls and cut them. So took him down, and then I didn't cut him, and he reversed me and started riding me. And then we get into one of those, oh, snap, we're in a crab ride position. I was just here 3 weeks ago. What not to do? Well, he kind of like hung his head. So I grabbed his head, one of those things we tell kids not to do, and ended up rolling through and pinning him. So that was cool. And I was like, yeah, nice. I did it. We're all American. This is awesome. So the thing that was really cool was my roommate, and he's one of my best friends, Jesse Hollinger, was in my corner, and he was the assistant that year.
Mm-hmm.
But we still lived together, and that year he took his national championship bracket and hung it outside my door in the apartment. So every morning I had to open my door, I got to see, oh, national champ. I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm going to do it this year. So that was one awesome year. Coming back, I was one of 3 returning All-Americans, or was supposed to be. But I decided somewhere along the way there, like I wanted to try and get into ranching, I guess. So I was helping out a high school buddy of mine, and we were moving cows, and I tipped a side by side and broke my leg, so I had to redshirt that year. Like, that was hard. That was a hard time to get through in college, because that year we had 6 All-Americans.
Oh,
We had 2. And I was like, oh, that's the group I came in with. I was like, this is a recruiting group. If I was there, I would All-American. We would have been a top 3 team. And every time I was at Dickinson, we took 4th my first year. I think we took 7th or 8th the next year. And then we took 12th, I think, the year I All-American. And then that year they took 5th. I was like, oh, we for sure would have been a top 3 team, you know? And that year we got switched. We got kicked out of the GPAC.
right.
And we ended up going to the Heart of America conference with Marshall, Missouri, Grandview, Iowa, Baker, Kansas. So like, we have to go back to the sticks in the South. I'm like, this is crazy. 14-hour bus rides just to get to the hotel so you can get on the bus and drive the next day to get to the venue. I'm like, this is wild. But that's kind of their life right now, you know? So then my senior year, I refocused, and the big issue there was going to be the weight. You know, don't have the mobility, obviously. Lost the speed a little bit, and my style changed. And that's when I had to become a technical wrestler. Before, it was use your athleticism and know what you're not good at. But now it's, well, you don't have what you're good at, so you have to adapt. So that was challenging and fun at the same time. And that was we had some barn burners that year. I had some really, really close matches. Brandon Weber, who's at NDSU, I wrestled him when he was at Nebraska that year. and I lost by a penalty point because I grabbed his singlet. I feel like things like that. You'd be in the match with these top quality guys and you just don't grab the singlet. But ended up bubble round again. Ended up losing to a kid that I lost my longest match ever to. So senior year, I also broke my hand that year. It was coming off my hand. And Schlecht was kind of like, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a baby about it? Because you're not going to get a redshirt year for it, or you're going to wrestle through it. It's like, yep, wrestle through it. And ended up wrestling this kid in the finals from Missouri Valley. And we went into 4 overtimes. And I watched the film like, this is a 12.5-minute match. This is wild.
Yeah.
And I ended up wrestling him for my last match in college. And that was a bitter, sweet pill to swallow. But it was just one of those things that kind of helped me with coaching, I think, today. Because I can relate to the agonizing, painful defeats when you think like it's all over. But then you build yourself up and you're fine and you can continue. And I don't want to say I'm thankful for that loss, but I'm thankful for the program and the people that were around me that helped me realize, it's not the end of the world. This happens in wrestling. And now I'm able to kind of illustrate that to the kids, and they can kind of see that, sometimes you got to get a little lucky. Sometimes it's out of your control. And it's one of those things too, that it sets you up for life, right? Like you can have all the goals you want. Sometimes you're not going to have your goals. Because that goal, obviously, I was going to be a national champ that year. I had no doubt in my mind, national champ or nothing, right? And didn't happen. Well, how do you bounce back from this, right? So I'm kind of sitting there with options like, well, what do I do? What do I do? Do I want to go coach in college? Do I want to go be a grad assistant? What do I do now? And I called around, talked to a couple of the local college coaches and kind of figured out, well, maybe I'll go to Minot. Maybe I'll go to Mary. I like both of those guys. Those are great. Maybe I'll stay at Dickinson. They're getting a grad program now. And Mr. Kleeman called Schlecht because they were college teammates. He's like, hey, we're short of teachers. Do you have anyone? He's like, I've got just the guy. And he put me in contact, and the rest was history. But
are you trying to ranch there too now?
Killdeer's
an area you can ranch.
I get to be a hobby rancher, right?
Okay.
So I married into a family that they're heavy ranchers. They ranch for generations. And a lot of my friends up here ranch. So my summer work the last couple of summers has been ranching or construction. So if I get an opportunity to go play cowboy, absolutely, right? I mean, it's just you get to live your life dreams. You get to coach and you get to go be a cowboy, right? What more do you want in Killdeer?
No, that's so true. Well, we're hitting our hour pace. God, I could talk to you forever. I tell you what, Sean, great stories, great life lessons that we can learn from all this. But I want to ask you kind of some quick hitters.
Okay.
And then, so let me get my list out a little bit, and I'm going to ask you just some quick quick response question, and then just see what you have for a quick answer. Okay. So what I call rapid fire questions to end this out for tonight. Okay. First question. And it's always a good one for a wrestler. Popsicles or dilly bars?
Dilly bars.
Okay. Dilly bars. Saturdays or Sundays?
Saturdays.
Are you a mama's boy or a rebel?
Oh, I'd say I'm a rebel.
Okay. Are you fast-paced or continuously slow?
Fast-paced.
Definitely. I would have guessed that one too. How about favorite holiday?
Oh, that's tough. That's tough because I have a tie.
Okay.
I really, really, really like Thanksgiving.
Okay.
But man, I love the 4th of July.
Okay.
Just America. It doesn't get any better than that.
Okay. Dan Gable or Cale Sanderson?
Dan. Dan Gable.
Okay. Well, he just got a presidential award tonight.
In that was
yes.
Cool.
Now, I just saw that, and Terry Steiner putting something on for it. I thought that was pretty cool. I'll have to talk about that later this week. Favorite number?
Favorite number? 2.
2. Okay, that's interesting. Any reason? Is it
takedowns are 2?
Takedowns are 2. Okay, very good. Favorite move to show? And you kind of mentioned that earlier, but maybe
probably double leg.
Double leg, okay. I would say Gatorade or Powerade.
Gatorade.
Okay. And then last, if you had to, now, do you have any kids yet?
Nope.
Do you plan on naming any of your kids a wrestling name?
So embarrassing story about that. We have 2 cats that we kind of attained while I was living in Dickinson, and we're like, what do we name these things? So they're Tom and Terry.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm sure a wrestling name would probably get influenced into our children's names.
Well, here's what's interesting. My firstborn, his name is Loudon from Loudon Swain from Vision Quest, but he ended up not being a wrestler. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, 5th grade, he broke a kid's arm and he said he was done. And he went and swam multiple state champs in swimming. But so that works out. But it was kind of a cool story.
Heck yeah.
No, okay, so that would be it, guys. I tell you what, I'm going to talk to Sean again. I tell you what, we didn't get to talk much about what you guys plan on doing schedule-wise or anything like that, but I'll have you on in the near future just to tell people we're still working out this COVID stuff. We're hoping that all the wrestling seasons, get as many matches as possible. I know the WDA is all messed up right now. We're not going to do much traveling. We're going to try to stay within the region in Class A. Class B, they're going to try to stay close to the same schedules, but we'll get into more of that. Guys, I really appreciate it. We had a lot of people watching tonight. Feel free to contact me, John Gums at dakotagrappler.com anytime, or john.gums@gmail.com. Just send me anything you can wrestling-wise. I'm putting together the preseason book right now. And if you want one of those, I'll eventually have some online, but those are my late nights. Guys, I'm going to call it quits for tonight. I do appreciate you guys watching. And Sean, thank you so much. I'll visit you sometime this year again on here, and then we'll also get together sometime. I'll owe you adult beverage or burger or something.
Perfect. Thank you for having me.
Hey, anytime. Any last comments from you tonight?
Everyone needs to get a Dakota Grappler. I remember I actually have one from every year of high school still in my bookshelf.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And Thad, thanks for coming on. You've done a great job. All the wrestling stuff you've done in your career. I'm going to have to visit with you sometime too. Just reminisce some old stories.
Absolutely. Go Hawks.
You betcha. Go Hawks. Definitely. You guys have a great night.